You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast for a late night Monday night stream. It's 8:30 as things stand on transfer deadline day, as we all know. The deadline shuts at 11, but it looks like the lights are probably off at Bodymore Heath for this evening. I think Villa tweeted a graphic earlier of their kind of January business, which suggested to me, we're done now, everybody, but there's still that bit of hope that Danny Ings comes out of nowhere. So we're kind of going to discuss the January window so far, with the caveat that maybe something happens in the next 2.5 hours, but I very much doubt it. My name is Dan Rolinson. I'm joined by John Townley this evening. John, are you all right, mate?
I'm all good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Is this your first transfer window working with us?
Second. I had the summer one as well.
Bloody hell, I didn't realise you'd been around here that long. I thought you only joined after the summer window. I was going to say, what was like your first experience of working the deadline day, but you've done it before.
Yeah, I'm experienced.
Yeah. We won't start with Matt Targett because he's the biggest story of the day, and I don't want to kind of peak too early. Kane Kessler-Hayden to MK Dons, not Swindon, like I'd put on the graphic earlier, because I'd still got it from the last time we went out on loan. And Jed Steer to Luton Town. Kind of to be expected, isn't it? They're probably not going to get minutes at Villa, and that's good business, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Kane Kessler came back, didn't he, from the loan? Gerrard called him back early in the January window. I think he wanted to have a look at him, see what he was about. Obviously, he hadn't worked with him before, but obviously had rave reviews off the coaching staff at Bodymore, because it's all very much interlinked now, isn't it? The academy to the first team operations. So Gerrard would have been given the lowdown on Kane Kessler and been given, I would say, really good reviews off the coaching staff, and Gerrard's coaching staff as well. Michael Beale working with really good youngsters in his former jobs at Liverpool and Chelsea. So they've got really high hopes for him, and there probably isn't a first team pathway right now this season for the next few months. But Gerrard would have said to him, come back here and try and impress me, or try and impress me in another loan move, because I was thinking, it depends what the young player needs. Sometimes you can only have a couple of months at one club, and then you've almost not completed what you've gone there to do necessarily. But Kane almost had completed his time at Swindon. He was clearly good enough for that level. He wasn't being challenged, really. Like, if you look at Jacob Ramsey, when he went to Doncaster, he was only there for a matter of like 2 months, I think it was, because of the coronavirus outbreak that stops all the lower league games. Yeah. And look how much he matured. So Kane probably came back, and Gerrard wanted to just see what he was about. There isn't enough opportunities for him right now, so we'll go to League One, which is obviously a step up from League Two, for a team that's fighting for promotion as well.
I do wonder as well with that. Obviously, there was talk with Matty Cash potentially with Atletico Madrid for 30 to 40 million, which looked like a summer deal rather than January anyway. And whether that's even going to happen is another matter. But there was maybe a thought that maybe if Cash does depart in January to somebody, we'll call Kane Kessler-Hayden back, and he will be in around the squad for sure. Once they know that there was no interest in Cash leaving in January, send Kane back out and test him at a high level, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's one or two. It was firstly to bring him back because, again, no disrespect to Swindon, but was he being challenged to the extent that we would have liked him to have been challenged, at least towards the back end of that loan? He was playing against Man City and was probably Swindon's best player. And then you say down the other path of that is that there was obviously speculation around Matty Cash. Gerrard himself just wanted more squad depth, I think. But once it might just become apparent to him that Kane wasn't quite ready yet for Premier League football, which is absolutely fine. And come the summer in pre-season, Gerrard would have set him targets as well. This is what we'd like you to do at MK Dons, and this is the sort of player that we'd like you to come back as in the summer. And that's all, a really good carrot for him and any other young player that's also go out on loan.
And pretty much kind of a similar story for Jed Steer, who definitely not understated the job he's done for Aston Villa and getting us back to the Premier League. But since we've been in the Premier League, he's never really had a sniff under a couple of managers now that unfortunately for him don't rate him as a Premier League goalkeeper. So he's not going to get minutes at Villa, especially Emi Martinez is your number one. We brought in Robin Olsen earlier in the window. Sinisalo is your academy prospect that you're trying to get through the door. So Jed Steer has to go out to sort his own career, doesn't he? He's not going to get time at Villa, so off you go to play football, Jed, with our best wishes.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't want to kind of stockpile the goalkeepers. I think
we sign one every single window anyway.
Exactly, and he's got like a little school of goalkeepers going on at Bodymore Heath as well. There's probably about 6 or 7 of them, at the moment that are training. So I think for Jed, he probably thought I'm coming up to. He's not goalkeeper wise. He's not actually very old. So he's got many more years left if he can stay injury free, especially in the Championship. and earn a really good career for himself in the next 4 to 5 years as well. So maybe this is the start of his sort of next chapter, should we say? He's kind of finished his Villa chapter, I think. And no doubt he's benefited from working with Cutler and obviously all the experiences he's had with Villa. And when he leaves, whether that's in the summer or maybe the year after, who knows, when his contract's up, he'll leave, as you say, with all of our best wishes. He's like a bit of a cult hero, really. You cannot understand anything that he did for us in that, not even the season, in those 12 games that we had towards the end of 2018-19. It's crazy stuff, But no, fair play to Jed. Hopefully he gets all the minutes that he deserves at Luton and he can really kick himself on again.
I saw a tweet earlier saying that the only players left from the playoff final are Tyrone Mings and John McGinn, and I don't remember the bench, and I don't know what our bench is now off the top of my head, but I assume Jed Steer is probably the only other one that's left from those days. So like I said, come in, done a job, and then goes away. Yeah. Let's talk about Target then. We mentioned Cash briefly there, but that was eventually a non-story, and we'll come back to that in the summer and see what happens there. Target is the biggest one from today, I guess. There's a couple of hundred people watching. It seems to have split opinion more so than I thought it would. So I don't know what word to say, but a good move or bad move in the comments. What do people think? Personally, I'm not that bothered, to be honest, that he's gone. I've seen people saying like it's strengthening a rival, and if Newcastle stay up because he plays well, we'll be competing with them for transfer targets next season. And he's not going to play. He's behind Digne. Clearly, doesn't want to fight for the shirt in second place when he can go to Newcastle and start every week. It's a selfish thing for him to do and save his own career, isn't it? But do I care? Not really.
Yeah, I think you probably brought up the one point that you could probably make in terms of Target maybe keeping Newcastle up, and then Newcastle maybe feeding in the same table as us come this summer. But each club has their own targets, and everyone's got their own jobs to fulfil. I'm with you, Dan. I think it's a bit of much of a nothing. I think Target himself, he wants to play football. He's a professional. He's 26 years old, and he's clearly not going to be playing much football with Villa. He's just been displaced by Digne, who's played 2 games, whilst Digne sat on the bench for those 2 games. The guy's not going to play any games. And as well, I think Gerrard is saying, he wants that squad depth, and he's really happy to have 2 really good fullbacks, or at least 2 fullbacks that will be challenging for that first team place, even though Digne is clearly the one that he likes more so than Target to fit his style. But we're not playing in Europe yet. I think, Gerrard has said on a couple of times he wants that, full depth, options for every position. But if Matt Target isn't playing, I think for the age that he is bound to be leaving the club. I don't know if it makes any worse for Villa fans that he's joined Newcastle or not. I'm not too sure. I think that's probably where some of the bitterness has come from a little bit. And maybe because it's only a loan and there's no fee at the end of it. But then again, even if he plays well, then no doubt Newcastle will, strike up a £15 million bid, something like that. And then can we say, I'll take it to 20 because we know that you've obviously got a lot of money. So no, I think we'll see where it goes, but it's nothing that, we should really be worrying about. I don't think at all.
I did see somebody on social media say that if Newcastle do stay up, they'll be looking at better left backs than Matt Target to sign anyway. So he'll be back at Villa, kind of stuck back at square one. But it gets him out in the shop window for 6 months, and if Gerrard doesn't fancy him, we don't even know whether that's true. We don't know if either side. But Gerrard said about having 2 players for each position, and everyone's got to fight for their shirt. And Matt Target might have thought, I don't really fancy that. I can go and play for Newcastle and play every week, and I'll show you there what I'm capable of. I don't necessarily even think it might even be the end for Target at Villa. Maybe he comes back in the summer and he's kicked on for 6 months and tries to get in the summer, maybe, or something happens to Luca Digne. That's football, isn't it? Anything can happen. But if Newcastle do stay up and he's impressed there and played well, 30 million. What's the going rate for an English left back at 27 or 28, however old Target is? So I'm not really that bothered. A couple of people have said, who's back up now? It's Ashley Young, isn't it? The same who was back up at the start of the season. The start of the season was Target Young, and now it's Digne Young. That's better, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think at the start of the season as well, everyone was raving about Young coming in and playing as understudy at right back, left back, being this versatile player that can play 5 positions. Gerrard said that as well. Ashley Young said that Gerrard has asked him to play up to 5 positions. So clearly, that's someone that Gerrard wants to keep at the club anyway, past his contract expiring this summer coming up. So now it's much of a muchness. It's Target's gone to play first team football, and we're cutting down on wages and probably going to get a decent fee at the end of it, because I think he'll play every game for Newcastle. They'll probably stay up. And if he's part of that, then fair play.
Yeah, exactly that. Somebody said to me that I saw Nash Young play a few games this season and decided he's not a backup left back. But and if you really gets down to it, Tyrone Mings has played left back before. Callum Chambers can obviously do a job on the left hand side as well, even though it's not going to be a favourite position. But if you're getting down that far down the pecking order with only 17 games to go anyway, we're not going to go down. We're probably not going to push for Europe. Does it really matter? Assess this in the summer and then see what happens. For me, I'm surprised there's this much of a kind of agony towards Matt Targett to go, what are we going to do now? And it's Ashley Young will be back up like he was to Targett. Digne is better than Targett, so it's a no-brainer to me.
And you look at Aaron Hickey as well, player that we've been linked with too.
Yeah.
I know at the club looking at him and thinking, he can play as backup, and you don't know what the club's thinking, but ultimately, no, Matt Targett's going on loan. It's it's no biggie.
Yeah, I think he wants to play football. Gerrard might have wanted to keep him, but if he wants to go, that's up to him to do. It is a bit disappointing that Newcastle haven't just come in straight away and gone, bang, here's 20 million, or there's an obligation to buy. But I think if he impresses there, then Eddie Howe will sign him. And who's a better left back anyway? What Newcastle suddenly going to be signing these world class players next season just out of the blue? They're still going to be a side that's just about stayed up. Matt Targett's probably about the best they can do still, I think. Away from today then, because that's pretty much it. I mean, I've got an eye on social media just in case Villa tweet, the eyes emoji or something and get us all rolled up, but nothing so far. And just on the January window as a whole, I've noted down 5 names, I think, that have all left so far this window that we've not spoken about yet. Keenan Davis to Forest, El Ghazi to Everton, Philogene Bidace to Stoke, Louis Barry to Swindon, and Cameron Archer to Preston. Out of those 5 names, and if I've forgot anybody else, who's kind of like the standout story there that you think is worth keeping an eye on for the next 6 months?
I'm really interested in Cameron Archer and Philogene Bidace, to be fair, but Archer particularly because he hasn't had that sort of exposure to he's obviously played at Solihull Moors, but it's a completely different level and it's really hard to judge that loan. And we know he's clearly a good player for what he's been doing in the Villa's first team and obviously the 23s as well in the Papa John's Trophy, scoring goals for fun against League One opposition, and scoring against Chelsea and scoring in Villa's Carabao Cup run this season as well, although it was very short. But I think going into January, there was obviously a queue of teams looking to sign him, and this move has been very well planned, should we say. It wasn't an off chance that, Preston have come in at the last minute, let's sanction that deal. It was a couple of weeks in the making. Sunderland, Portsmouth, there was plenty of clubs looking at him, maybe at League One level, but for him to get a Championship loan and obviously scoring his debut against West Brom as well, impressing his second game too. Really good start for him. And it's good to sort of know what level he'll be at come the summer again in pre-season when Villa have got 2 strikers. He'll be sticking around next season if he can get up to anywhere near 7 goals or something. That's a brilliant return for half a season in the Championship, because we know how difficult it can be to score goals in that division. And Philogene Bidace as well has made a really good start. Nearly set up a goal against Huddersfield on Friday night, I think it was. Hit the post as well in both games that he's played so far. Made a really good impact off the bench. And these players that we haven't quite seen, like full 90 minutes playing against, really, really good competitive opposition. We've seen him against Barrow.
The under 23s, where it's just too easy for them.
Exactly, they're a level above. And they're not the sort of 18-year-old sort of Louis Barry kind of Chukwuemeka. They're now the sort of almost 20-year-old where you really are starting to kick on and get your first team minutes and when you're expected to really break into a first team.
Yeah.
So those to me are more interesting. But of course, looking at like Kane, Kessler, Louis Barry, we've got so many bright young players. It's a big job for Mile Jedinak and the loans management team.
He's going to have eyes everywhere. He's going to be a very busy man over the next few months.
Yeah, exactly. We probably need like a whole backroom staff for it. We've got so many youngsters coming through, and obviously in the other 23s now, you've got loads of players that probably need loan moves that haven't got them as well.
Yeah, Reiki as well went to Grimsby, was it, I think? Yeah, that's one that I didn't even note down. Yeah, there's a couple of interesting stories, really, because I think you've got Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins are obviously your main two, and there'll be conversations in the summer about whether you may be cashing on Ings or you have an offer from Arsenal of 40 million for Watkins and stuff like that, which will go around, no doubt, and who the backup would be to those two anyway. Is it Cameron Archer or Keenan Davis? And Davis going out to Forest and scoring a couple of goals already and looking pretty good in his short spell so far. Again, he's probably the other end, isn't he? You kind of separate those two and see Davis and El Ghazi as like a probably shop window loans here to go out and impress and leave, and the other guys to go out and develop and come back in the summer and be assessed again. But Davis, if he has another, I don't know how many games left in the Championship, if he scores just 10 goals or something, you'd be looking at that and going, Christ, where's his goal scoring boots come from? Maybe he can get back into the Villa side. So that kind of little mini competition between Davis and Archer both having Championship loans is really interesting to me. I'm looking forward to seeing how they both get on.
Yeah, I love Keenan Davis because I think he offers so much, and it was always that goal scoring touch that was lacking in the Premier League. And with all due respect, there was no sign of that coming. So he really needed that low move. I think it was a couple of years not too late, but I wish he almost went out on loan when we got promoted almost, and then really show what it was about then. Because it's, again, you're coming back to that stockpiling of players. I don't want to stockpile players because they need to earn the stripes somewhere else, and then they get a career at other places. And I think for Davis, he probably will come back to Villa, but then there'll be interest from other Championship clubs, and it'll be up to him if he wants to leave or not. Because I think sometimes you're so motivated to break in, having been at Villa's academy, obviously not for his whole teenage years or whatever, but coming through a Premier League club, you want to make sure it works. But then he probably gets one taste of Nottingham Forest and realizes that I can make it here. I don't mind staying around. That sort of thing. But no,
Let's not forget Nottingham Forest could be promoted this season.
Oh, absolutely, he could be a Premier League striker anyway. But no, Keenan, I love him. But again, I think it's coming down to does he want to play backup in a Premier League team? That's the question. Same for Cameron Archer, to be fair. If he's scoring anywhere near 10 Championship goals, he might be not too good to be playing as backup in the Premier League. But what does he want to do with his career? That's the question with those, I think.
What about El Ghazi quickly? Do you think that's maybe the last we'll see of him in a Villa shirt?
Yeah, I think so. The sort of way that Everton deal was done in terms of how El Ghazi reacted to it, the kind of comments that he made, it kind of sounded like he probably knew that was the end of his career at Villa. And again, you can go into more detail about his career at Villa and what he's done for the club. But his contract's up at the end of next season, so he enters his final 12 months in the summer. Villa won't get a huge fee for him, but I'm sure they'll be looking to get some sort of money just to balance some sort of FFP. Same as it will be with potentially Douglas Luiz in the summer as well. You're looking to get fees for players that are going to reduce in value over the next couple of months, I would have thought.
Let's talk about the ins very quickly. We've got Olsen, Coutinho, Digne and Chambers. Chambers is one that we've probably talked about the least because we've seen Digne and Olsen in a couple of games already. That's a pretty solid window, isn't it? I think obviously there's been a lot of talk about a defensive midfielder, and a quiet deadline day always brings some kind of scrutiny to go, why haven't you done something? Do something at least. But I think if we'd signed nobody a week ago, and then Digne, Coutinho, and Chambers came in the last 2 or 3 days, we'd all be going, bloody hell, what a window! Well done, Villa. So it's a bit of perspective. I understand the frustrations about a holding midfield, and we'll discuss that in a bit more detail in a second. But just sum up those ins for me and how you kind of rate the transfer window, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost like a bit of recency bias, even though it's only been a month. But it always feels like a long month, doesn't it, the January window, because there's so many rumours and there's so much going on, and it's 4 weeks of constant, speculation. But no, I rate it 8.5 out of 10. That that sort of range. I think obviously the holding midfielder would make it a 10 out of 10. But then, can you really criticise Villa for not having a 10 out of 10 window? It's that's quite harsh. And again, how much have we spent? 25 million on at least Coutinho and Digne, 2 players that dramatically improve your first 11. And then Olsen, backup goalkeeper, Callum Chambers for about £2 million, I think it was. But obviously, cut price deal because his contract's running out. Gerrard's got what he wanted, and he said himself that he'd want to be patient to get the holding midfielder. So no, I've absolutely no sort of negative comments to say. Obviously, it would have been nice to got that defensive midfielder, but if it wasn't available, probably Yves Bissouma is what we're probably talking. Then again, you can't have any qualms because that's the top player, and you're not going to get all of them in January, are you?
What do you make of the DM situation? Because you kind of sit there as fans and go, it's another window goes by without this player that we're screaming out for. Yeah. And I understand the fact of being patient and you've got to wait for the right deal. And Bissouma for 50 million in January, whether that's is that good business or is that a good deal? Because people are saying it goes down to 12 months in the summer, and Arsenal, Man United, Juventus, some big European giant will come for him for less than 50, and Villa have got no chance. And I kind of go, yeah, fair enough. I understand that viewpoint. It was kind of now or never, wasn't it, for Bissouma and Villa, I think. But we say all this about a DM, and now that's been Gerrard and Dean Smith and several transfer windows where the club haven't signed this holding midfielder. So they
Yeah,
know best. Do you know what I mean? Like, do we need one? Do they think they can get by without it? I understand
yeah.
people say that's the difference between it. It is a very important position, but I don't think Villa are going to get into Europe this season, and we won't go down. So wait till the summer to do the proper deal rather than rush it through now. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that in terms of if it's not available, don't rush and do not stockpile players. The last thing I wanted us to do is to buy a holding midfielder that we then look in the summer and think, oh, actually, I'd rather buy Yves Bissouma. Let's spend now 35 to 40 million pounds on him. And this midfielder that we just bought is now almost useless because he's not going to play for us now. But I think the midfielder situation is difficult because I think Dean Smith, he always had that particular defensive midfielder that he's always had at Brentford and Walsall. There's always that sort of diminutive ball playing midfielder that doesn't necessarily win the ball, but he likes to play it around. So we had like the Ryan Woods, like the Nico Yanaris and all these players back in the Championship. And now it was the sort of Douglas Luiz. Villa were very rarely wanting that sort of big. I think Stefan Zonzi was one player that potentially that they were looking at, but not for whatever reason that deal didn't come off. Presumably because Smith was content with having a Douglas Luiz type. And again, fans have their sort of opinion that we need a different sort of player, an Yves Bissouma sort of player. But again, if it's not available, it's not available. There's nothing we can do about that. I think Gerrard's sort of made it clear. Again, his top targets, he wants to get those top targets and he won't settle for second best. So when you had speculation of Bentancur, etc., it was almost a bit like, well, is it true? Because we know we want Bissouma. In the summer, he's got 12 months on his contract. And yeah, there'll be a lot of competition. But there was competition for Coutinho, there was competition for Leon Bailey, there's been competition for almost every player that was signed in the last 12 months on a backers to get the player, because every single time that a player does an interview, or even Gerrard leaving Rangers, even though he's almost guaranteed to get that Scottish title again, everyone always talks about Suarez and Edens and the project, and everyone seems to be wowed by it, and everyone seems to believe in it as well. They're not just saying that. So there's something that us fans know about the project, but there's something that players are being told and the people inside the club are being told that are, getting really excited about where the club's going, and hopefully that's going to work on, if Bissouma is the main target, hopefully that will work on him as well in the summer, because there'll definitely be interest from United and Arsenal, etc., because he is one of the best players in his position in the Premier League.
I think this is my 5th transfer window now since I've been working for the company, and I've always said that your big rebuilding jobs is always a summer thing. So to get Digne, Coutinho and Chambers, and Olsen's your Jed Steer replacement, to just get those three, that's a big window to me, so I don't expect that level of business from Villa, because that's not what we normally do. DM would be nice, but if it wasn't for Nakamba's injury, I think he would have played every game for us and was only getting better. So maybe Nakamba is the main man to come back into the summer, and you don't want to spend 50 million on Bissouma now because you think, well, Nakamba's going to be in that position for me. He's the one I want. I don't really fancy Bissouma. It's football and agents and managers. It's a complex game, isn't it? It's not straightforward. Just going, he's a good player, let's go and pay for him, because you've got to fit into a system and all these kind of things. So for me, you wait for the summer. I think you could potentially see a very different kind of core side, core kind of section to the side if transfers happen. Talk about Matty Cash with Atletico Madrid, Ollie Watkins and Arsenal, Douglas Luiz and Tottenham. Those 3 players could leave for 100 million. And then you've got big money to spend to improve in different areas, and that's what a summer window is for, that big rebuilding job. January window is little additions and little tweaks. So to get Dean and Coutinho and Chambers as a utility player, that's a very good window for me, I think.
Yeah, and that's what almost 75% of the job, really, in terms of what Gerrard's team looks like. And, he's got that 4th centre-back that he wants. He's got Coutinho, that sort of playmaker, or sort of, whatever he is in Gerrard's system, we know that he likes Digne, that bombing left-back. But you got like Coutinho, we know that he's going to cost about £33 million as well in the summer. So that's already £30 million of your budget.
That's true, yeah.
If you're looking at Bissouma for close enough to 50 million now, that's, what's my maths? Like almost £70 million in the space of a few months on 2 players that obviously are going to improve you. But if you look at Villa spending a lot of money over the last 3 years, I think in terms of FFP, we're only probably £5 million spent in terms of this season because of the Grealish sale and a couple of others. So we're okay with that. But then, as you mentioned, Dan, there's probably the holes in the team that Gerrard has looked at and probably wants to improve on that we haven't even assessed yet. Does he fancy Matty Cash? Does he fancy Ollie Watkins? Does he fancy, even a centre half. We don't know about Quansah and Mings yet. Those are both Dean Smith signings. So there's plenty more to be done. It's not as simple as Gerrard looking at a hole in midfield and think, Bissouma 50 million, all right, let's do that. It's far from that. So no, but I think whatever happens, we're in good hands. So it's not as if we're looking at back in the day we might have seen a Benteke and he's leaving and there's no way of replacing him, or we replace him with a Gastet. If we don't get Bissouma, all right, but then we'll look at this other Champions League player, or we look at this other top Premier League midfielder. But I think fans just want to sort of crave that deadline day signing, and that's why there's a bit of emotion today.
Yeah, I always get it kind of thrown at me for sitting on the fence, but just trust the manager. Trust the manager, trust the board. They're the ones that are in control of the situation, and I'm not. So I'm not going to sit here and throw my toys out of the pram because we've not signed Bissouma on deadline day. Because trust the manager. We've got 17 games left to get through, and then we'll see what happens in the summer window. It's still exciting. We've still got a good side that we're building. I'm still going to go to Villa Park and enjoy myself. So deadline day is overrated. I know it's part of the job for us to be hyping it up and talk about it and write about it and do work around it. And if things happen, obviously it is worth doing, but. We was picking strongest 11s with Bentancur in last week. For Spurs. It's like, what was the point of any of that? It's just mad, isn't it? So just trusting what the process is doing at Villa. Enjoy yourself. Don't get too caught up in it. I mean, who knows? We've got 2 hours left to go, and all this could sound stupid if we come out and do something. But I very much doubt it. So. I think, John, we'll call it a day there. We won't call it a night. We'll be on standby just in case. And if something does happen, we will jump back on it and discuss it. But we're not. I'm going to turn my webcam off because I don't think it's going to happen. So, John, thanks very much for your time. I know you've got another couple of hours of your shift to go, so I'll chat to you in a bit. Thanks to the fans for tuning in. I kind of just tried to answer some of the questions that were put to us in my notes as well. So hopefully we've covered everything. Like I said, there'll be some kind of podcast in the coming days to kind of rate the window properly, and I think we'll get James Rushton on that one to go through it. So yeah, thanks everyone for your time as always. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.